Hi, this today is the 21st of September, and our meditation is based on Romans 13, verse 8. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continued debt to love one another. The continuing debt to love one another. These meditations are about grace. We started them in the very beginning of the lockdown here in France in the month of March. And they are trilingual, Portuguese, French, and English. And they are on grace. They are on grace. And why grace? Because we believe in the Christian faith that everything that we receive from God is a gift of His grace, because we cannot deserve any of this. So now we are in the practical part of the book, the letter to the Roman Church written by Paul. And in this, here, he's talking about debt. And there are three other places in the book where he talks about debt. And the first one is in Romans chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. I'm obligated both to Greeks and non-Greeks, both to the wise and the foolish. That's why I am so eager to preach the gospel also to you who are in Rome. So it was a debt that Paul had to preach the gospel, an obligation, it says in this version of the NIV. His desire, his deep desire, was to preach the gospel to everyone, to Greeks and non-Greeks, to Jewish and to Latin peoples, to the Greeks, to everyone. In those days, if you were civilized, it's because you were Greek or Roman. If not, you were just a barbarian. He's talking about the wise and the foolish here. I mean, the people were civilized according to them, and those who were not, barbarians here. And he wants to preach the gospel. To him, it's like a debt that he has got. And in the first part of this chapter 1, he explains to us what the gospel is. And he says that the gospel talks about Jesus. It is about Jesus, Son of God, and Jesus, Son of David, the divine and the human the human side of the same person. And the gospel is about him. And the gospel is also in chapter 1 about the righteousness of God. The righteousness of God is revealed in the gospel. This way that God has to live, to breathe, to be, to do, that is completely different from us, that the Bible calls God's righteousness. So he's got a debt and he would like to pay it. And he wants to pay it. That's the first time he talks about a debt. The second time is in Romans chapter 8, verses 12 and 13. Therefore, brothers and sisters, we have no obligation, no debt, but it is not to the flesh to live according to it. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit of God you put to death the misdeeds of the body, you will live. So the debt here is to the Holy Spirit to live a holy life. It's an obligation that we have with the power of the Spirit. By the grace of God, we can live a holy life. So that's a debt here. The third and one before the fourth, that is the one we are talking about today, is in Romans chapter 13, verse 6. This is also why you pay taxes. So to pay taxes is a debt, and that's something that you have to do. When you owe someone something, you have to pay. And the obligation here, the debt here, is to pay taxes. But there is one debt that you never finish paying, and that's love for one another. He says here in Romans chapter 13, verse 8, let no debt remain outstanding. the debt to share the gospel, the debt to the Holy Spirit, to live a holy life, the debt to the state or to anyone, you have to pay for those. But there is one that you never finish paying. When you die, you won't have to pay taxes to the state. When you die, you won't have any problem with the flesh anymore because it will be dead with you. You won't have to share the gospel, but you still have to love. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it's written that even faith and hope will not remain as long as love will. You won't need hope in heaven because you'll be there, and the thing you hoped for, you have with you. But you need God's love to love the other person forever. So that's a debt that you never have to pay. You can never finish paying. You might think that because I have loved someone for 30 years, you lived with the person and you loved that person for 30 years, now it's like taxes or it's like anything else, you're not going to pay anymore because you have paid enough. It's never enough. That's what he's saying here. Except in the English translation, it's written, except the continuing debt to love one another. It's continuing. It will never end. God bless you.